What is up, guys? I am that boarding school dude. Welcome to another episode. Today, we're going to be doing something that we've never done before. Today, I'm going to be having a boarding school alum come live on the show. Stick around. Okay, guys, welcome back. Thanks so much. I have somebody who reached out to me, and they just thought it'd be a great idea to maybe jump on and we do a little Q&A. So stick around. I think you're gonna like it. So you went to West Nottingham Academy your your sophomore and junior year. So tell me, how did you end up there?
Go back to I'm gonna go through the whole.
Yeah, go ahead.
Coming out of the eighth grade, really in eighth grade, so it's for me 20. Hard to believe 20 years to the date that I started the process. Pretty much
goes by quick.
It does go by quick. Going into my freshman year of high school, looked at a couple schools, and ultimately came down to looked at three schools that ultimately came down to Blue Ridge School in Virginia, Massanutten Military Academy also in Virginia, and then Trinity Pauling up in New York.
Gotcha.
Massanutten was out right away. Just didn't like the field. Didn't seem like students were happy there. Actually, was an incident on my tour when those were in person back in the day, right?
Really?
We're living in. Some kid ran up, middle of the tour, right? Some kid ran up, like, "Don't come here, it'll be the worst decision."
No way! Oh my god, dude! I bet that was like grounds for suspension right there. But
right. I think they told me they expelled him like the next day. They're like, "Don't worry about that guy. He was expelled like the next day or something."
Dude, that is amazing. Oh my god. Okay, so you narrowed it down from the three, and then you ultimately ended up choosing Blue Ridge.
Blue Ridge down in it's St. George, really right outside Charlottesville, Virginia.
Yep.
Picturesque campus down there in Blue Ridge Mountains. So it shows that it's single sex. Pretty much, if you're watching your church farm video, pretty much spot on of the way it was. It's that whole mentality. You got to scrap a little bit.
Oh,
it was good camaraderie.
Yeah.
And we did this whole thing. I don't know if you guys did this at church farm. We'd have there were some pretty prestigious single sex all women's schools, right? Madeira's
sister schools.
Yeah, sister schools.
Right.
And we'd have and stuff, and then there was this camaraderie. It was Blue Ridge versus Woodbury, and it was we're the blue collar Blue Ridge, and then you've got Woodbury's the real prestigious things. So it was always this
Woodbury. That sounds familiar to me. I want to say that didn't Beto O'Rourke go to Woodbury?
Absolutely correct.
Yeah. Oh my god, dude! I should have fucking went to Harvard, man. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
But okay. So that's how I know of Woodbury. Beto O'Rourke went there. Okay.
That was maps, and then funny enough, so I'm down here in Houston, right? And I know we're going off on a track here, but this is kind of funny. Some schools were getting some bad publicity, alumni relations in recent times. So I would run around Rice University, right? And a guy had a WFS shirt, and I was like, I know that shirt. And I didn't get a chance to talk to an older guy. So then I'm out running, I think it was a month later, and I saw him. I finally confronted him. I said, "That's a Woodbury shirt, isn't it?" He looked at me like, "Who in the hell is this?"
Yeah, it's a small world.
That's Woodbury Forest. And he said, "Yeah, it is." I said, "No shit."
Dude, wow. Interesting.
Yeah, small world. I couldn't believe it.
So you ended up going to Blue Ridge, and it was all guys. Uniforms?
Your typical
shirt, tie, sport jacket.
Yeah.
Did you guys have to be clean shaven every day?
Yeah. I think
awful.
I don't still do that today, but yeah, clean shaven
sucks.
Right. So I was a young, freshman at that time, so I really wasn't sporting.
So why did you end up leaving Blue Ridge? Just not your thing, or what?
Yeah, I really just looked around to see what else was out there. Did it kind of last minute, right?
Yep.
So looked at West Nottingham, and that was pretty much the school we looked at. It was kind of close to my house, 60 miles away.
Yep.
Seemed like a fine fit, co-ed school, and a little bit closer in proximity. Different feel. Like I said, I go back to that video because it was pretty much spot on your church farm video, where it's this mentality. It's it's different when you're not in a co-ed environment.
Dude, it is, man. I remember when I went to Church Farm, we had like a 60-year-old librarian who's a woman. And,
Right.
you get to be like 6, 7 months into a school year. And I'm telling you, teenage boys start looking at like 60-year-old librarians weird, man. Like,
It was, yeah, the same aspect, right? And then it was, you really get a different. Both all the schools do that, right? Like a diverse population. So definitely exposed me to some things. So like I said, go back to your Church Farm video, and that when I watched it, I was like, man, this is. And I've actually been to Church Farm, run the course there, but it just was spot on the way you described it. I said, man, I think we're like 8 years apart, but I assume it's still like that today.
it's got, well, look, as well as I know that these boarding schools, they don't change too much from year to year, man. Like they have a certain way that they like to do things, and they just,
yeah, the tradition.
yeah,
Right?
yeah,
It's in tradition, right?
yeah. So okay, so you left Blue Ridge, and then you ended up at West Nottingham Academy. Now, first day, I know it's a ways back, and let me just say this for anybody who might be watching this video. Okay, you might be saying to yourself, "Oh, that was 15 years ago. That was 20 years ago. That was 25 years ago. Things are different now." Let me tell you, they're not. Okay? Things change minutely at these schools because they just, for reasons like we just said. But you get there, your first day, what's that like?
For me, I felt like a seasoned vet, since I had already been to boarding school. I was coming in, but yeah, I mean, a lot of it is like you described in videos. You're immediately reaching out, like who's going to be your roommate, who is it? You want to make that contact right away. Get in front of that person, okay? Immediately, like bond with the people on your floor.
Yeah.
Get that with them. Find out what their hobbies and things are. And you're just hanging out. So really, that whole thing. And then I remember we did like the Walmart trip was the big deal. You got your room set up, and then for the weekend. You're doing, hey, we're going to Walmart. Like, that's a great thing.
Yeah. And so, like, wait, so refresh my memory. How many students go there? Like, about?
So at that time, they were pushing like 170, but today I think they're down to like 60 or 70 people. They've really struggled. Like I said, I'm not really in contact too much, but
wait, so 60 people for the whole school?
I believe it's gotten that small because they're cut off from what I understand, they're cut off from all the, your foreign student can't get in the country right now. So I guess you might consider some of them. And there's a whole thing with the I haven't looked into this. I need to look into it for you a little bit. The whole J1 visa process or whatever visa process that is for the school.
Yeah.
I think they're not allowed to do that virtual, if I understand that correctly.
So let me ask you this. Because I think in my review, I mean, and let me just say that, before I jumped on with you, I watched like 10 to 15 minutes of like that episode, and
yeah.
I was terrible, but it was just my second one. I was just kind of going off cuff. But I do remember that they said that like they're ranked top, like in the top 20 of all the schools in the nation of most international kids. Am I getting that right or no?
I think it was something like that. Now, in my day, it wasn't. That was like a stream, and the way it's been, from what my own research and understanding is that they've used that stream to get, because it's a quote unquote tuition-driven school. They've used that stream to get full paying students.
Yeah.
Definitely an international component when we went there, but it was not to the level of what I'm understanding it is today.
Right. So like for anybody who's watching this, generally speaking, all international students are full paying families. Like they don't get financial aid. Is that how it was there?
Yeah, that's certainly how it was.
Yeah, okay. So that makes sense why they're struggling now, because listen, I remember specifically when I was in like 10th grade, right? I remember we were all acting up on dorm one night. I think we just like fucking trashed the dorm one night. And the next day the headmaster came up and he was like, "Boys, sit down." And every single kid on the hall, there was like 100 kids on the hall. He lined us all up. And he sat us down and he just said, "I'm going to tell you guys one thing and one thing only. I could have this entire floor filled with Koreans tomorrow. Remember that." and it kind of sunk in. It was like, holy, wait, really? Like,
And
Wow.
it's one that hits you in the moment because it makes you realize that there might be somebody in line for that position. But yeah,
Oh,
that's
definitely. Wow.
yeah.
So you get so okay. So you get there, you move in, and what are your first initial thoughts?
Yeah, so it was the ratio was like still, I think it was like 60 or 70, 70, 30, guys to girls. So it was like, that's you're young,
Wow.
young. Oh man, like, what's going on? What are your rides? You're looking at your student body.
Absolutely. We used
Oh,
to do we used to do that the first day of school. Like, let's see the new crop of like
new
freshman
crop
girls that
that
came in.
everybody's lived in that moment, right? So, so yeah, that whole thing, sizing up the facility, what's meals like, all these things going through, checking out. I mean, I toured the school, so I knew pretty much what it was, and then just getting ready for like the sports. They didn't do Went to Blue Ridge. We did an athletic training camp pre the opening of school.
Yep.
So that was really like go back to that one. That was really the eye opening one. I remember I was with my first roommate for freshman year was a Korean roommate, and it was like, okay, this is a culture shock.
There you go. Right.
This meant studying all hours of the night, and I don't think
Wow.
I really gained an appreciation for like the effort and his dedication until like later looking back, and then different business outings or whatever of different cultures, obviously.
Yeah.
That what it takes to come to a new place and not speak like barely any English, have to pick that up on the cusp. So yeah, that was a whole thing, and then just being able to gel, right? Like two people that don't know each other, now you're in a room together.
Yeah, for sure. So let me ask you this. Walk me through a typical day at West Nottingham Academy.
So yeah, so their schedule was pretty much the same, except we had like one day which was like a late start. You guys had that like our day was like Wednesday would be like a late start. So every day, you get up in the morning, you go in your thing, get ready, go to breakfast, and they had facilities were limited there. They didn't have like a big dining hall, a hall for meetings. So morning meeting was held in the dining hall versus like an assembly place.
So your homeroom was in the dining hall.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to call
Yep.
it that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the whole school met there. They'd give out some news, maybe some academic accolades
Yep.
or athletic accolades of the day, what happened,
Yeah.
what's big news. Being a small, knit campus, everybody knows everyone. So.
Oh, dude, let me tell you something. I know it. You hook up with a girl,
Everybody knows. Yeah.
at least 30 to 40% of the entire school will know by the next day.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, nothing's being hidden.
That's that. Yeah, exactly. So you wake up, you go to your thing, and then I'm assuming right after that, your academic day starts.
Yeah, that was pretty much, I don't say whatever 7:30 to 4 o'clock or whatever, 3 o'clock, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Obviously you have lunch in the dining hall. They only had one dining hall at that school. And
was it nice? Like was it like appointed nice or?
Yeah, so I'll go into that. Yeah, so I mean, and this is one thing I definitely recommend, for anyone that's going through this. And at the end of this, I definitely want to just talk about some of the things I think are important for anyone going through the admission, watching this video to admit. But to talk about West Nottingham Academy, it was buffet style, right? You're going through a dining line.
Yep.
Towards the end there, they actually had brought in an ex-faculty member of like the whole school, so they tried doing, your home family style meals, where everyone's sitting. You talked about that in one of the videos where basically the idea of that is you're blending faculty and students with people you may not normally hang out, associate with. You get to know different people. But yeah, all the meals were buffet style. You go through a line. There they had a company called Sage Dining Services, which I still believe has that culinary contract, and on the lower end. And that's something
lower end as in like they also supply the food for like the prisons in Virginia and stuff. When I went to undergrad at like a university like in Pennsylvania, I remember like the food service company. I believe it was the same company that did like the prisons in Pennsylvania. Right. I don't know. It was something weird like that. Anyway, keep going.
Yeah, so it was definitely subpar. I mean, for what we were paying, and back then, just so everyone's aware, tuition for me, and this is 2000, circa 2002 to 2004. Tuition was like 29, 30,000.
Totally.
That school's at like 64,000, something to that effect.
Oh yeah.
And as you said in most of your videos, that kind of runs the spectrum, right? The 50. I pulled some numbers like right before we did this, like 55 to 65. I saw Episcopal High on
Yep.
down at 65, and it looked like Phillips Exeter was like 55. So
Yep.
so rate, you know, compared to the cost of living, that number is skyrocketing. You know, from an inflation standpoint.
Insane.
Yeah, insane. Yeah, I mean, think about it. And in State University, like I went to State University too. I think I was paying $6,500 a year in just tuition. So
Yeah.
think of 1 year boarding school was more than 4 years of tuition at a collegiate level.
Absolutely. I was in the exact same thing where when I went to college, I mean, I knew I was probably going to have to get a master's degree or go to graduate school after that. And boarding school was actually more expensive for my parents than college was.
Yeah, that's the thing. People don't think about that. You know, I hear people say, "Well, I got to put this money away for college." When I came out, I thought to myself, and it was a little bit forward leaning. You know, at that time, I said to myself, I want to go to like the cheapest school I could find for college because I'd spent so much money.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. And I felt like I got a good education out of that at a state university. Definitely for best bang for the buck, I would say, for someone out, in the Maryland level at least.
It's so funny because when you think back, getting a bachelor's degree is like getting, it's like unless you're getting a bachelor's degree from like Harvard or Yale, I mean, you can kind of, I don't want to like discount most universities, but you can kind of get a bachelor's degree anywhere now, and you're still just getting a bachelor's degree.
Yeah, I think the good point too with that is, and a lot of people don't, we're in a world of like market disruption right now. Obviously, some of that's like internal driving forces, right? Just utilization of technology, different aspects that are just evolving with time, right? But also some external factors, like the COVID world we're living in, where really I think in this era, the whole idea of education is being a little bit redefined, right? This idea that you could go virtually or something like that.
Yeah.
So it'll see how that plays out because, like you said, some of these institutions steeped in tradition, hundreds of years of tradition, are very slow to evolve. I mean, you go back.
Oh yeah.
Some schools that are elite didn't become co-ed until the late '80s, early '90s. Some of the schools you covered, Barnesville is an example.
Yeah.
And there's, but yeah, I mean that's pretty much.
Did any of your parents go to boarding school?
No, neither did. They kind of got on that bandwagon, the whole board. So for people listening, thinking, I mean, where I grew up was a pretty good school system from public school perspective.
Yeah, I would think so.
I don't remember it being today. It's totally evolved. I see a lot more political forces in it. I don't remember that when I went through school. I've started to go back and think to myself, what were people's like leanings politically? Because you didn't see a lot of that back then in terms of like what. Or today it's totally out there, and I was just looking at something, and it's like, whoa, this has really moved in a new direction.
Yeah,
what they're putting out there, a lot of that's being driven by the current events going on, obviously. So that's definitely a wake up call. If I had to tell anybody 20 years, what has evolved, that's definitely evolved.
Well, that and the fact that every kid these days has a cell phone. I mean,
yes.
When you were there, you probably had a cell phone, right?
Yeah, but certainly not
not an iPhone.
Right. So it wasn't. And that's the thing. The technology is just so much more out there, and then that even leads into the whole boarding school process of admissions. Right. I remember, certainly in your day, you got a catalog, and you're looking at pictures. Nowadays, you're pulling it up like you're doing here.
Totally.
Going through that, and it's kind of quote unquote democratized the whole process, right? It's made the schools to differentiate really have trouble now because one can copy what the other one's doing a lot easier. You go online, if I'm an admissions, what's this school doing? What do we need to do to match that level? So it's kind of blended some of the products that the schools are putting out there, certainly.
Yeah, it's definitely the level of competition these days. I don't know. It's interesting because you look at a lot of these schools, and their acceptance rates are still generally like pretty low. So they're getting the applications after turning this many people away. So I don't know, man. But getting back to West Nottingham Academy, so the food was just How were the dorms?
the dorms had not. So they had 4 dorms there. So 2 dorms had not been renovated, and 2 dorms were relatively new at that time.
Right.
So I lived my first year. I lived in a dorm that was like 50 years old.
Yep.
And they hadn't put to it. Since then, they did spend limited money to renovate that, and I've actually been through that. It's what you would expect. And then I moved up to a new dorm. Like I said, it was only 6 years old at the time. And it was a pretty nice facility. It didn't have.
Was it like hardwood floors and like?
No, absolutely. But I mean, it was, for a new building, it was fine. It had your, I think, like linoleum style floors.
Yeah.
Stucco. They did it on a budget.
Yeah.
It just seemed like a building. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't like to the level of some of these, some of the schools that you've highlighted, where they had put a lot of money into their campus facilities, right? Just their.
I think that's like the number one dead giveaway if a school is well funded or not. Is that when you go into like, I mean, there's a couple things that jump out to me right away. How well the grounds are taken care of. You look at the buildings, and I don't know. I think there's, I mean, there's a reason why some buildings are 150 years old and they still look like they're really well taken care of. And then you go in to some of the buildings, and I don't know. Like I think that like people should definitely not discount that when they go on like tours and stuff like that.
Yeah. I made a list like the top 5 things I would definitely tell people to focus on. Looking at it is your campus facility number one, because like you said, you go to a building that says 150 years old. Look inside. Have they put money back into that campus? And that tells you a lot about how the school's economics are. Are they going to have the programs? Are they going to get the draw to be able to have that selective process, right? And that's how they do that. And then because you're eating 3 meals a day, your culinary dining experience. You spend a lot of time there, so that's important.
Yeah, I remember. That's funny you say that because I remember my freshman year when I went to Church Farm. And we had to work in the kitchen and whatnot. They would take that food and you weren't allowed to throw out. You weren't allowed to put your food in the trash can. You had to put your food in like a trash can specifically for food because they took that and they sold it to like pig farmers or something like that. It was crazy, man. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, no. Some of them have, like you said, anything to generate some revenue. I mean, that's just the nature of it, right?
So when it comes to athletics, did you play sports?
I did, yeah. So I did track and cross country. That's ultimately why I went back to public school to get some more exposure from like an athletic scholarship type thing. Since West Nottingham did offer at that time, they had a football team. They actually got rid of that team. I think it was in 2007. They totally did away with that team. They've done away with some of the other teams too. That I think, as you even stated in the video, would give that draw. To me, that was like a forgiving. You got to have a football team.
Yeah.
So and now not have that, I would question how many people that turns away that they don't have a football team.
That's a good question. Yeah, I mean, like I was surprised by a lot of these New England schools. They have football teams. Like both boarding schools that I went to, they didn't have football teams, and I think that you need to have like a student body. I think you need to have like a student body of at least 400 to 500 people minimum to like really feel the competitive. I mean, and I say the word competitive loosely, but so who was in your like athletic league?
So they were in at that time. It was called SIAC, which was like I think it was like Southern or Southeastern Pennsylvania Independent Athletic Conference or something to that effect, or Susquehanna Independent Athletic Conference is what it was.
Gotcha.
I think pretty much that league had dissolved for the most part, but you had home school. It was mostly day schools, to be honest with you. Home school, Elkton Christian. There might have been one or two.
Woodbury?
In that one, no. Now, when I went to Blue Ridge, we were in what was called the Virginia Prep League,
right.
which was that was, yeah, okay, you're going out competing, I think
Against
in
the
that,
big boys.
right, yeah, we had in that one we had Woodbury, Virginia Episcopal, Christchurch,
You're right.
Norfolk Academy. Yeah, that was a big one with that. But yeah, so West Nottingham didn't really have that, but we played a lot of at conference schools. So I've been to
Yeah.
St. down in Middletown, Delaware.
Oh, you guys played St. Andrews also?
We did, yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Church Farm, Phelps School.
Oh,
So yeah,
wait. You guys played Church Farm in Phelps School?
yeah, we played those schools. Yeah. So now this was cross country, so a lot of times it was like they had a big meet at. I think it was the first for West Nottingham. That was the first meet I ever went to.
Wow.
Church Farm.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yes,
So you actually have been to Church Farm and seen it.
yeah.
Dude, that's crazy, man.
Yeah. So. But
That's
yeah,
interesting you mentioned Phelps, too, because I'm going to be reviewing Phelps soon. And I have the funniest story of when we actually went to Phelps and played them. But I'm going to save that for the review because it's amazing. But so okay, so let me ask you this: how are your grades when you went there?
I'll be honest with you, they were about fair. I mean, I'll be honest, a lot of the way I went through school is I didn't really put in a crazy. Not like I'm a pretty smart person. Just I didn't put in a whole lot of effort. To be honest with you,
Yeah, so you took a casual approach to academics when you were a teenager.
I tried to see how least amount of work I could do at that time.
Absolutely, I was the same way.
It had nothing to do. I want to be honest with people. It had nothing to do with laziness. That was really, and I've used that as I've matriculated into management roles in my life, leadership opportunities. It was really figuring out how to beat the system, if that made sense.
Absolutely, I think you're always trying to game the system when you're at boarding school because you're living there and you're just trying to figure any little way to kind of get some breathing room.
Yeah, and I mean too. I think this will be my piece too for people. If you're looking at the schools, there's plenty of schools out there, even in this selective environment, that'll take your money. That's number one thing. So there is a school out there for everybody, as far as I'm concerned. But
that's true.
Like that, where I think it was a more hyper competitive environment, and I was top notch in cross country and track. But had I had that more hyper competitive environment, I think I would have probably pushed myself a little harder. But like I said, it wasn't looking back going oh, I didn't apply myself. It was literally how do you, like you said, how do you figure out to do stuff with the least amount of work? So it's really that.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting, as you get older and you look back on it and you think to yourself, it's hard to look backwards 20 years through
Right.
a current lens. You're trying to it's you don't have the capacity, the wisdom of someone in their late 30s, early 40s as when you're 16, 17 years old, you're dealing with a 16, 17-year-old mind and it's just I get it, man.
Yeah, I think too. I mean, and I do go back to it, but I think too, it wasn't that I didn't know these things. Like I said, it was, you're living in this environment. So for the freshmen coming in, it's this exciting experience. You're not, your parents aren't telling you what to do.
Yep.
You're around a lot of people, hanging out with your friends. And then over time, it's okay, now you're the big dog on campus. You're ready for the next step. But yeah, that's pretty much where that goes. And the academic program there was fair. I mean, I took some AP courses.
Yeah, how were your teachers?
So it's funny. So when I look back at faculty, to be honest with you, the number one thing to me that defines it, especially if I'm looking back, like you said, with a lens or and the world's changed, is faculty that had real world experience. And that was really one that really drove me. Anybody that made the classroom a second career, a retirement gig, those really are the best faculty, for me at least, that really define a lot of the way I spend my life today, looking back and saying, okay, what did I take away from that? What was the big takeaway from that? One I'd like to highlight. I had an ex-military guy, ex-Naval Academy guy, and he was a lieutenant commander on USS Iowa when that gun turret exploded. You guys go back and look at that. It was a 1989 incident. 41 people lost their lives. And he talked a lot about it. And at the time, again, 16, 17-year-old, it really didn't make sense. He was talking from like a global perspective, big picture, organizational leadership type thing. A lot of value that I really didn't get just from the boarding school piece, but looking back on that really has, in my life, helped me out in terms of from leadership. He talked a lot about the fallout of that incident, and then just the way he conducted himself, being ex-military and having that background, right?
Yeah.
Leadership. You're running a multi-billion-dollar battleship and,
yep.
and other. So really, that was good. Overall, faculty was, being that it was a school again with a lower endowment, a lot of teachers fresh out of high turnover. There was some tenured faculty in terms of people that had been around a while, but not really a lot. A lot of it was a stopping ground, essentially, where teachers, got their start and then went on to the big schools.
Totally. Yeah, I think I think that you could say that about a lot of boarding schools in general. Like, it's really weird. Like sometimes I'll just breeze through on YouTube and check out like, I don't know, just kind of do some very like minimal, like exploratory kind of like, oh, let me check out this school or whatever. And it was so weird. It was just like last night, as a matter of fact. I'm laying in bed and I came across this video from the dean of admissions of Northfield Mount Herman up in Massachusetts, right? Well, guess what? The dean of admissions there was my like like we lived on 2 floors at Westtown. This guy was the dean of the third floor boys, like at the time. I knew him when he was like in his 30s. Now he's like in his like late 50s or early 60s, And so I feel like there's this rotation of people. They go from one to another and they just keep kind of climbing this like administrative ladder. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's definitely true, and that's another thing is it's a very small world in these schools. Everybody knows everybody.
Yeah.
Because people are constantly moving around. So if you start talking to people from one school, they're going to say, "Hey, I know this guy." Like just between West Nottingham and Phelps, there was a whole slew of faculty that moved around. We had people. I think I saw one of your things. Someone asked you to do South Kent School. The athletic director there was a former faculty member at West Nottingham, and then a guy who played at Lafayette College, who was a teacher. But his name at the time was Ralph Carter. He's now Rafael Chilios. He's going on to be, produce a lot of different talents. But he's going back up there. He was a teacher at West Nottingham as well. So it is a revolving door.
Yeah. Yeah.
All.
So let me ask you this. When you ultimately decided, and I'm sure you've had this talk with your parents as well, when you ultimately decided like it was your time to kind of move away from there and go to public school your senior year, what was that like?
Yeah, so basically, my situation was basically my grandparents left an endowment for college, and then I used a good portion of that for high school, paid for high school.
Yeah.
Class background. So that's how I went through 3 years of boarding school. And then between that and deciding like maybe we shouldn't use all this money for just high school and really not seeing some of the benefit out of it.
Right.
Opportunity, went back to public school. I didn't see it as a detriment because, again, these were people like I grew up with.
You already knew them.
Yeah.
Oh, so you essentially went to middle school with them too, I'm assuming.
Right. So it's like coming back home for me.
Yeah.
So it wasn't bad, and then it was the freedoms, and then there were some things that I was able to get out of that. Like I worked a job while I was going to school playing sports.
Sure.
So I was a little self-driven at that time, and then being in a larger thing, it wasn't like everybody knew your business all at the same time. So to me, it was a more relaxed environment. But I don't want to use that to deter people. What I wanted to do was kind of just give people who are watching this video, going through an admissions process, make sure you shop the schools so that you see what's out there, what options are out there for you, so you know, okay, what does this school offer versus this other school? Keep them honest. For me, had I gone to probably one of those more elite schools, had I explored that avenue, probably would have been a different outcome for me. But that's one I would say again.
So specifically, when you say would have been a different outcome, what do you mean by that?
Yeah. So my takeaway is, when you go to a school that has limited facilities, limited offerings, there's a difference there. Like we didn't have a track, so to run track and field, we had to go to a public high school. So
Yeah.
this is an academy. So that very well could have been mitigated if they had put money into or had the financial means to have that facility on campus.
Yeah.
Just things like that. So facility drove that for me.
So would you say that if you would have ended up at a school that had a higher endowment, all the facilities and funded really well, are you saying that essentially you wouldn't even have entertained going back to public school for a senior year? You would have, like, because it sounds to me like one of the issues that you may have had was that you felt like it was just underfunded.
And it was, and they put that in our face too. And like again, going back to that whole organizational leadership, how not to run an organization. That was put in our face a lot. Well, we're a tuition-driven school. Well, it's like, well, why do you not have that alumni giving a lot of money back, or why is it so limited? And then you start to see, well, maybe the alumni didn't have such a great experience 20, 30 years before, and
Yeah.
that's years, and that's a common theme. But for me, it was kind of a special situation too. Is I knew a lot of guys at my public high school. Like I said, we'd gone elementary, middle school together, and they were very close to winning a state title at the public school level.
Yeah.
And they bombed it out my junior year, and then so I said, I got to come back. We got to win the state title, and the program for me was kind of limited at West Nottingham from a cross country piece.
Sure.
So I went back, and then that's what we were able to do, win a state title. So it is a little bit of a different thing, but again, it provided me a financial resource to
yeah, for sure.
Left for college. So it was kind of like the perfect storm. But the takeaway I want people to have is understand that there are options out there, and if you are going the boarding school route, nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Shoot for the top, and know that they're out there.
Yeah.
And don't be scared of the statistics. I'd be interested to see what the numbers look like for when the admissions season closes out here for the accepted class of what'll be 2025.
Yeah, because that deadline's coming up, I believe, around March 10th or something like that. They'll know who's coming and who's not.
It's because it's a different world. There's people that are going to be hesitant to send their kids. So I'd just be interested to see, or if some schools are operating a virtual thing, well, how do you justify spending the 60K?
No way. It's a great question. I'd love to get an admission person like on the show or on the channel and say, hey, like, how are you guys weathering this storm? Because as a parent myself, let me tell you something. There's no way that I'm putting out that type of money if my kid is not getting the full experience. No shot.
Yeah, and that's where I am too. I mean, I go back and forth with that, right? Like, when I have kids, if I'm fortunate to be able to do that, is that something I would do? Is send them to a boarding school or at least entertain them?
So you do see value in it?
I think there is. I think the world is evolving again. I don't, I've been fortunate enough to evolve my career where I do some hiring decisions. And, I think about that. I don't really look at it, where they went to college or what school they went to. I think there's some traditions and stuff you take away, but, even some of that is now changing with just the way we're moving as a country. Or some of these things, should they have been around? Should they have been, really evolving time. I think if we look between like the time you went through and the time I went through, I think it's like an 8-year gap in there. It's probably a lot smaller, tight knit, narrower than obviously where we are today.
Yeah.
But like you said, it's these places are steeped in tradition, and they're kind of the last to really make changes.
So let me ask you this. Give me 3 things that you liked about West Nottingham Academy.
Ooh. Well, this would be funny, but I guess being away from my parents.
Yeah.
You're again the focus of that in my case, 15 to 17-year-old kid. You're for whatever it's worth, it's some level of freedom, right?
Yeah.
I'm doing my own thing. I mean, so that was that at that time. That seemed really good. Being able to connect with people that I would from all walks of life, and then people that I wouldn't, be able to connect with worldwide, globally, global perspective.
Yeah.
Provided that, and then finally, just some of the experiences you get through like living with people 24/7 that you wouldn't get in another environment.
Give me an example. Give me a good example.
I would use the I'll call it the 5 sins that you covered in one of your videos. Just the crazy thing. We're living for the night. All the risks you take.
Did you ever sneak out?
Oh my god! Stuff. I was on the double on some of that stuff, but I mean, like you covered this too. Today, Big Brother's everywhere. I probably, if I was going through these places today, I'd have to really think if there's a camera everywhere, would I been able to get away with that?
It's a great I think it's a totally fair statement. Is that there's cameras everywhere now? You wouldn't be able to get away with half the stuff.
Yeah, I'd almost like to interview some of the kids today to find out like what goes through your mind. Like you see these cameras, do you still take that risk? Like in our day, we could take that risk and
all day long.
All
day.
The fire alarm experience where somebody pulled the fire alarm just to see what was going on. But you think about those things. It runs through your mind. But again, you're 15 to 18-year-old, 14, whatever, and the risk just doesn't. You don't process that risk the way you do.
It doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't. It doesn't. It hits different now. There's more. There's more on the line now, man. But back then, man, I could tell you that back then I was a wild cannon, man.
You had to stand up with you had to outdo the guy next to you, right? You know what I mean? That was it.
Dude, and I don't know how it went down. Like, so the dorms at West Nottingham, was it like 50, 100 guys on one floor, or was it broken up into different house? How was it?
You had the floors, but because it was such a small school, there wasn't. I think there were like half the school was day students.
Yeah.
So I think there were 80 to 100 boarders back then, and like I said, from what I understand, it's well below that now.
But when you went there, it was like what, maybe 30, 40 guys to a floor or something like that?
I would say so. The dorm, the newer dorm had less people. I think it had like 10 on each side.
Yeah.
Really smaller thing. So 20 in that, and the larger dorm had, I think, like 30 or 40 people, and then the balance were in another building,
it's like a frat house.
It's good as a co-ed building because they had they put the freshman guys with the senior girls. So I was like, that's
wait a minute, wait, what?
Well, anyone watching this, Rolling Dorm, circa 02 to 03. They had the freshman guys, and then it was weird. So they actually had.
That would be amazing if I was a freshman guy. That sounds like the greatest situation of all times.
But they could. The only part that could be co-ed was like a lounge area, and
you're still under the same roof, man.
You know what people were doing, but then the next year they didn't have enough. I guess the female population was down, so they made that an all guys dorm.
Yeah, but if you're there that freshman year, and you know there's that one dude every year who's like who manages to pull a senior girl, man, right? And then that guy becomes a living legend now.
Yeah, all these wild things. Yeah, so I mean, no, it was like I said. I look back on it, and I can't believe it's like 20. Like, does it? When you think about it from like a number perspective, you start thinking, wow, like
yeah, it's crazy.
Like 20 years, and it goes by. I mean,
that's just life in general. Yeah, I mean, it goes by quick, man. But like, let me ask you this: if you had to give me like one really, really funny story from your experience from West Nottingham, what would it be?
I'm trying to keep it. Like,
did you ever get in trouble there?
I did.
Did you get suspended?
Yeah, I got suspended.
Yeah.
It was like Monday. Okay, this is gonna sound crazy to anybody that didn't. I got suspended one time for skipping sports.
Skipping sports.
Okay, so
oh yeah, okay.
they suspended me for that. No, this is great. They go, we're gonna stick you on wrestling, and they didn't know I had wrestled at Blue Ridge before, so this cracked me up. So they had a meet, and I pinned somebody at the meet first time. Like I hadn't wrestled with the team, but I worked out. Obviously, did a lot of running, so
right.
part of the competition. So I pinned somebody. I remember the next day at Athletics, they were announcing all the winners for wrestling, and the Reisman pin, and everyone was like, "Hey, what the? Like, what happened? Hey, you didn't know about all that now." But yeah, we did the. I can't really say like a crazy. I have them. I mean, I think more Blue Ridge. The stuff I remember, like they had the dance, and like this kid got caught like doing his thing with two girls back in the room. They made a big deal about that, and I don't really remember West Nottingham. More like every day someone would get kicked out for drinking. Like you talked about that.
Yeah.
Cardinal sins. The fighting definitely was definitely no tolerance, right? The top two were no tolerance.
So let me ask you this: like, what was like the top like 2 or 3 big no-nos when you went there?
Yeah, I would say drugs, alcohol, and fighting. And I think today it's probably gotten worse. Like you said, the law might be getting involved.
Maybe, yeah.
I can only imagine today people pulling out cameras, and then the school's like has to protect its image.
Definitely, man. Definitely.
Imagine what it's like now, but yeah, I mean that was. Yeah, I didn't really steer into that stuff, but I mean,
skipping sports but listen, that's what happens, man. If you are somewhere where you're not supposed to be or whatever, like you're getting in trouble, man, for sure.
Oh yeah, and then the key to this is if you get in trouble, make sure you're friends with like the custodial staff or like the dining staff. Stick you in there. And I remember they had me like they're like we're gonna give you in school suspension or something, and I'm in there and they had me mopping, and the custodial staff was like, "Hey man, you can take breaks and do whatever you want, and we have to tell you one thing." And they're like, "I was like, well, what's that?" They're like, "You're the first person that knows how to operate a mop properly." I was like, "Yeah, the stroke right." And I mean, it really wasn't. I'm talking about it now. Everybody's going to get in trouble. It happens.
Yeah, it does. It certainly does.
You'll learn from it. It's not. It doesn't define you, right?
No, of course not. It's. Listen, you're a kid.
A learning experience, right? But that really taught me something though. Is from those experiences, like working beside people, blue collar, whatever, and really being able to make an impression on them. Like, who's this guy coming in? Oh, okay, he has good work ethic.
Yeah,
and that's really some of the takeaways I take away from that is work ethic.
Right? Listen. I remember when I got suspended from when I think it was either junior year or senior year. I think it was junior year. I got suspended, and before I had to go to like my trial, right?
Right.
Yeah. It's called discipline council, and you had to go in front of this like jury, basically.
Right.
Dude, this is so funny. I remember I'm like hanging out in the hallway waiting for it, and the head of the kitchen staff, right? He was like famous at our school. Like everybody knew him, right? He comes over to me and he leans down, he looks right at me and he says, "I'm going to give you some advice." Because he knew, like just through the grapevine, he knew that I was going to, to trial. He said, "I'm going to tell you this once. Don't forget it. Say as little as possible." And I was like, "All right, man, fair enough." And he was right. He was totally right, man. Just keep it short, keep it concise. Don't blab on, because people are going to try to like rebuttal what you say. You got to be friends with those people, man. They'll look out for you.
Right. I can't stress that enough. I mean, that really was an eye-opening experience. And like I said, the work ethic piece. But yeah, they had that, the whole proctor prefect thing. Blue Ridge had that. West Nottingham didn't. But yeah, honor councils. Did you guys have an honor council? There, yeah, I think it's pretty much across the board.
Yeah, I mean, like I remember sometimes when we would take tests in class, the teacher would leave.
Right.
There would be no teacher in. That was at my first boarding school. It didn't happen at the second one, but at the first one, there's a test. Teacher gets up and leaves because they just expect that you can be responsible, and be a person of like integrity,
Yep.
But there was always that one kid in class who was like, he was trying to, man, like give it, what's 34, 30, what's the answer? C,
Did you guys ever
whatever.
like where like I remember we had these old desks where they had like the cubby and like people would like put their notes like so the guy next to them could see or girl next to them could see. I remember all that. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I remember like some guys would bring like a water bottle into
Oh,
like a test. It would be like one of those like Coke bottles, and you could take the
yeah.
paper off of like the thing, and you would see dudes like writing like notes and just put it like on their crazy times, man.
Yeah. It was wild.
So before we wrap up, let me ask you this: um, you have a kid, you can afford it. Do you send him to? Would you send him to West Nottingham?
The answer is no. In the current state, no.
Okay.
I wouldn't really rule out boarding school, but I would say no because for the simple fact of this, I don't feel I got the value out of that school. To be
Gotcha.
honest with you. I don't feel I got that value.
Listen, and that's fair enough. And that is, look, you don't have to answer for that. Essentially, they do, because it's their school. And look, granted, everybody has a different um, experience when they go to certain schools and whatnot. And yeah, so it's fair enough.
Yeah, and I mean, my takeaway on it is this: like I said, a lot of the value that I've gotten out of these are the soft skill, real world piece, and I don't feel the school did that enough. And I look back, like maybe we had advisors and stuff like that, but maybe he had had a better connection with some type of faculty that would have reeled in and said, hey, this maybe I take more out of it. But like I said, a lot of what the value I got was that real world experience of the faculty provided me, and then I've been able to incorporate that into my life, the way I live my life today.
What are you up to now? Do you have any like social media handles or anything you want to shout out?
I don't, but if anybody has any questions, we can put my email in. It's just jordan.reisman at gmail. I'll go ahead and give that to you. We can put that in, and anyone wants to ask a question, want to ask Chris or myself, I'd be more than happy to answer if I can guide anyone through an admissions process, what that looks like. Definitely would be open to doing a video with you where we walk through an admissions process and look at a couple different schools. This one's a little off the cuff, so bear with me. But if you guys have any questions, throw them at me. My name's Jordan Reisman. You can find me on Facebook as well. I'm not too much on social media, but
Cool.
I'm down in one of the final base stations of Freedom down here in Houston, Texas. So whatever I can do, definitely if I can provide you, be a resource for free without people having to go through the educational consultant piece, whatever, definitely reach out.
There you go, guys. You heard it here first. So I'll ask you one more thing, and then I'll let you go and enjoy the rest of your weekend. What are your thoughts about the channel, man?
I love it. So the way I came across the channel, just to break it down, I was actually just like same thing, kind of like just YouTubing, searching like different schools. I'm actually looking at WNA, seeing what stuff they had out there. And I came across your channel. I was like, this is pretty cool. He's doing some good pieces. And I think your newest video at that time was Georgetown Prep, which I, from Central Maryland, so I'd been to, been on that campus too.
Yeah.
So just checking out, the different things, the way you did it. I like the way you do the channel.
Good, man.
If I can be a resource again, I'd definitely like to come on. I think you got a good piece. I see you're on Clubhouse, so maybe get a Clubhouse channel going, talking about independent education. I think there's a lot of stuff to do with this. I'm looking forward to see where you take this channel. I'm glad I could be your first guest on here, first live.
Yeah, man. Listen, we're just we're just winging it, so we'll see what happens. But yeah.
Wait to see what the comments and responses are.
But, oh, listen, that's another thing, man. Let me tell you something.
Yeah.
The trolls are gonna come out of the woodwork, man. 100%. I mean, you're gonna see some.
We're gonna get some.
Listen, that's the most surprising thing so far that I've learned about doing this, and just really ultimately just having fun. Just having fun doing it. What's that?
Is it more the comments you're getting, or is it more like in emails from the trolling?
It's just both, man. It's funny. It's like, I'll get like DMs and be like, how the fuck could you rate Taft better than Deerfield, and I'm just thinking to myself, dude, this is just my opinion, like, I mean, listen, I get it. Like you probably went to Deerfield, or you know what I mean? It's like
Is just, let's be honest, is you're doing it, you're covering, it's the dude sport, so it's your channel. You can do whatever the heck you want.
Dude, I'm just throwing it out there for the people, man.
Two, the thing is, you're rating them on video. So some schools have a nice, campus facility and story to tell, but they bomb the video.
That's right, and that's a huge, huge part, because guess what? Like, I'll give you an example. I got reached out to by somebody in the marketing department of a boarding school last week.
You could do a whole channel literally running. I would love to see this, like going on campus, doing a whole thing, like where we get to check the food out. We give you a full rating on food. And I've spent a lot of time doing hospitality type things too. Interviewing students in this school. Tell us about your experience here, and putting together a whole piece on that. I think it would be a really good thing.
Yeah, and you know what? I bet, and I don't have my crystal ball, but
somebody's gonna reach out and say, "Hey, that's a great idea. Come on and do that."
Dude, I'm telling you, it's only a matter of time, because somebody reached out to me from the marketing communications department of one school, and it's just funny, man, the power of the internet. And like, so stay tuned, man. Listen, I could be coming to you live from who knows where, man.
I'd love to partake in that, and then, like, it's interesting to see it. Like some of your videos, like I think the top one, and I mean the channel's growing by the day, right?
Yeah.
But I think the top one right now is, like, from a view perspective, is like Deerfield Academy. It's interesting to see that too. So
it is.
The work out. I'm sure when one person's seeing it, it's just going up the chain. So I'd love to see what
it's growing exponentially. And listen, I will definitely keep in touch, and I might have to send you. What's funny, man, is that I've actually gotten some emails from people asking, please review like certain schools in Texas, and there's a couple down there like near you. So I don't know if you ever seen like the Louder with Crowder stuff. He always sends his guys out like into the field or whatever. Dude, I might have to reach out to you about that one time.
Well, I've enjoyed it. I'm glad we were able to get this together, and I hope it is an asset to the channel, number one, and then also an asset to the viewers out there.
Yeah, I mean, listen, and for anybody who's watching this, okay, if you currently go to one of these schools and you want to, there could be some liability there. We might have to, like, it's really funny, and I'll leave you with this, is that I actually got reached out to by a group of kids who go to this like boarding school. I'm not going to name it right now, but they said, listen, man, we'll give you the skinny. We'll tell you what's really going on. But you need to, like, we can't be seen, and you got to put like a voice enhancer or something on it, because we don't want to be kicked out or anything. And I'm just thinking to myself, oh my God, this is like getting
a whole new thing, because you think about that. Like, I couldn't imagine if there's some scandal going on or damaging the reputation.
Yeah.
But that's the world we live in. It's 24/7, real time. The information is provided real time, and there's plenty of people out there that will tell you their story and have a compelling story to tell. So
it's true.
Like I said, it was probably a different angle than a lot of people on this channel are expecting. But I thought it was important that people hear it, because
why not?
Spend a lot of time in reflection. I'm sure you do too. Like, what worked, what didn't work, and I use that in the way I conduct my life. So
yeah,
I just want to be a resource, but also provide people an opportunity to see how that goes down. There's pros and cons to everything in life, and I can't say it enough. Definitely shop around.
There you go. You heard it here first, guys. Shop around, take it away, and hey, man, listen, I really appreciate it, and I'll reach out to you soon. All right.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me on the channel.
All right, thanks, buddy. Bye bye.
Have a good night. Have a good weekend.
You too. Okay, guys, there you have it. Our very first live guest on the channel. Yeah, there were some good points he made, and yeah, let me know in the comments section if you guys enjoyed it, and if you haven't already done so, please like the video, comment down below, and most importantly, hit that subscribe button. It really means a lot. It really helps out. I don't know what's coming up next, but I will be sure that it's going to be an absolute killer. So, thanks. See you soon.